Hey everyone, welcome back to my series on the 2020 Democratic Party platform. If you missed the first video and want some context on how the platform was drafted and voted on, click on this link up here. Otherwise, let's get into the first parts of the party platform, the Land Acknowledgement and the Preamble. So the Land Acknowledgement is a one-page statement acknowledging that all of us are currently resided on land that was stolen from the original native people who lived and still live here. Since the official convention took place in Wisconsin, they list the tribes that are native to that area of the country. I think this is a good way of calling attention to the fact that everything we do is being done on stolen land. I just really wish that the party supported more policies that would actually do something to help the people who we stole this land from, rather than just acknowledging it. Anyway, moving on to the preamble. Now, the preamble doesn't have any specific policies in it, it just sets the stage for what the goals and tone of the rest of the platform are going to be. What really stuck out to me was, first, the sheer number of references to Donald Trump. It's really clear that even in the first 3 pages, how much they're hinging this election on not being the current occupant of the White House. Second, there was the amount of posturing and lip service that they pay to progressive ideas, even though it's abundantly clear from their actions and from the rest of the platform that they do not actually support any of the policies that would actually back up those ideas. Third, there's this really toxic combination of blue MAGA, phrases like restoring the soul of our nation, and a soft kind of imperialism. It's pretty clear that the Democratic Party establishment is also regressive and uncomfortable with the ramifications of real progressive change. They're also just as imperialistic as Republicans, but they like to dress it up with more of a bent towards compassionate global leadership and promoting human rights, but only human rights for people in specific countries and specific circumstances. So, without further ado, the preamble. America is an idea, one that has endured and evolved through war and depression, prevailed over fascism and communism. They have to get in and attack at leftists right in the first sentence and also do this weird horseshoe theory thing of we've overcome over both horrible far-right ideologies and also ideologies that say that everybody should not be poor and have a right to like food and housing. And radiated hope to far distant corners of the earth. Americans believe that diversity is our greatest strength, that protest is among the highest forms of patriotism, that our fates and fortunes are bound to rise and fall together. Well, unless you're in the 1%, in which case your fortunes are just rising. That even when we fall short of our highest ideals, we never stop trying to build a more perfect union. Well, a more perfect union for corporations and billionaires. When the American people go to the polls this fall, we will be choosing more than just a candidate. Character is on the ballot in this election. Great character your nominee has there, guys. He has also been accused of rape and sexual assault. The character of our president, yes, but more than that. The character of our democracy, our society, and our leadership in the world. The challenges before us, the worst public health crisis in a century, the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression, the worst period of global upheaval in a generation, the urgent global crisis posed by climate change, the intolerable racial injustice that still stains the fabric of our nation will test America's character like never before. The COVID-19 pandemic has laid bare deep-seated problems in our society, the fragility of our economy and social safety net, the risks posed by growing inequality, the impacts of racial and economic disparities on health and well-being, and the profound consequences of deepening polarization and political paralysis. Okay, see, it's not... This phrasing makes it seem like any time when people talk about political paralysis, they are referencing a supposed inability of the two sides to come together and compromise, when in reality what has really been happening with American politics over the course of the last several decades is that the Republican Party continues to step to the right, continues to step more towards fascism, and the Democratic Party seems to think that it is their duty to try to compromise with them, at which point the Republican Party steps even farther to the right. And they somehow still haven't realized this is happening, or it suits their own needs just fine, and so they're content to keep having it happen. The bill has come due on the Trump administration's hollowing out of our public institutions, the sidelining of experts, the rejection of science, the underinvestment in research, and the gross corruption and abuses of power. President Trump's dereliction of duty has caused the deaths of tens of thousands of Americans, the loss of tens of millions of American jobs, and lasting harm to our children's education and future. And it has revealed, at tragic economic and human cost, the emptiness of the Republican Party's America First foreign policy. The Democratic Party also has an America First foreign policy, but you know what? Under President Trump, America stands alone. Friends and foes alike neither admire nor fear President Trump's leadership. They dismiss and ridicule it. The Republican Party under President Trump has made America small. Okay, if the Republican Party had actually shrunk America's global footprint, that would be, in my opinion, a good thing. What the Democratic Party is doing here is actually attacking Trump from the right and saying that he hasn't been imperialistic enough on the global stage, when we are a people called to do the greatest things. Democrats will fight to repair the soul of this nation, Blue MAGA, to unite and heal our country, to turn this crisis into a crucible from which we will forge a stronger, brighter, more equitable future. We must right the wrongs in our democracy, redress the systemic injustices that have long plagued our society, throw open the doors of opportunity for all Americans, and reinvent our institutions at home and our leadership abroad. We do not simply aspire to return our country to where we were 4 years ago, and yet. We know we must be bolder and more ambitious. We must once again stop another Republican recession from becoming a second Great Depression. I think you're a little late on that one, guys. President Trump and the Republican Party have rigged the economy in favor of the wealthiest few and the biggest corporations, and left working families and small businesses out in the cold. Democrats will forge a new social and economic contract with the American people, a contract that creates millions of new jobs and promotes shared prosperity, closes racial gaps in income and wealth, guarantees the right to join or form a union, raises wages, and ensures equal pay for women and paid family leave for all, and safeguards a secure and dignified retirement. You know, that sounds a little bit like a Green New Deal? We must guarantee health care as a privilege, not as a privilege for some, but as a right for every single American. Okay, you say this, but then you don't support Medicare for all. For a century, Democrats have fought to secure universal health care. Have you? In the depths of the COVID-19 pandemic, President Trump and the Republican Party are trying to tear health care away from millions of people who depend on it for survival. Democrats will not allow that to happen. We will not rest until every American can access quality health care and affordable prescription drugs. Okay, a note on access. Democrats use this word a lot as a cop-out from saying the sentence, every American has quality health care and affordable prescription drugs. That's basically the entire ethos of the Affordable Care Act, is that everybody can access it, which means nothing about them actually having it. And they will use this to sound like they're progressive while still basically supporting policies that will leave millions of people without health care. So be on the lookout for the word access. It'll show up a lot in this. We must steal and strengthen our democracy, not distort and debase it. Democrats believe there is nothing to fear from the voices and votes of the American people. Okay, that's rich, because they did so much tampering with their own primaries, from the debacle in Iowa to Obama and his people calling up all of the other candidates in the race to drop out, except for Elizabeth Warren, because she was kind of a progressive and was taking votes from Bernie. Like, if you're really not afraid of the voices of the American people, they wouldn't have done any of that. They wouldn't have this dumb superdelegates situation where, even though they couldn't vote until the second ballot now, if there had been a second ballot, they still exist, and they also would support things that 80% of the party supports, like Medicare for all. We will restore the full power of the Voting Rights Act and stamp out voter suppression in all its forms. We will curb the corrupting influence of money in politics. Okay, that's also rich, because the Rules Committee of the DNC, which met before the convention, voted to table voted to not even vote on a resolution to prevent corporate lobbyists from being members of the DNC. They didn't even want to vote on it. If they actually wanted to curb the corrupting influence of money in politics, they would have had that vote, and they would have voted overwhelmingly in favor of that resolution. And protect the integrity of all of our elections from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Nice hint at Russia right there. We will never accept political gridlock as our fate. We will never tire in our fight to deliver results and create opportunity for all Americans. Opportunity, very similar to access. And we will end the war on government that has politicized our institutions, denigrated public service, and left the American people on their own instead of working to make them whole. We must heal our nation's deepest wounds, not fan the flames of hate. Democrats will root out structural and systemic racism in our economy and our society, and reform our criminal justice system from top to bottom because we believe Black Lives Matter. Again, this is a thing that they say, but they also are against defunding the police, which means funding other institutions that would actually help minoritized communities in the United States. And in fact, Joe Biden wants to give more money to the police. So again, they're not listening to the actual Black Lives Matter movement, they're just saying the words. We will ensure that our nation continues to prize diversity and compassion and welcomes those who yearn to participate in our great democratic experiment by creating a humane 21st century immigration system that benefits all Americans. But no mention of the people who are actually immigrating here, just that it benefits Americans. We will give hate no safe harbor. We will never amplify or legitimize the voices of racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, anti-Muslim bigotry. This is also funny because the Democratic Party and Joe Biden particularly just put down Bernie Sanders delegate and Muslim American Linda Sarsour for supporting the boycott, divestment, and sanctions, aka BDS movement, for the rights of Palestinian citizens in the Middle East. Or white supremacy. Democrats will protect and promote the equal rights of all of our citizens, women, LGBTQ+ people, religious minorities, people with disabilities, Native Americans, and all who have been discriminated against in too many ways and for too many generations. We commit ourselves to the vision articulated by Frederick Douglass of a government founded on justice, recognizing the equal rights of all. We must lead the world in taking on the climate crisis, not deny the science and accelerate the damage. Okay, then support the Green New Deal. From Houston, Texas to Mexico Beach, Florida, from San Juan, Puerto Rico to Davenport, Iowa, the last 4 years have seen record-breaking storms, devastating wildfires, and historic floods. Democrats will rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement and go further, but apparently not Green New Deal further, building a thriving, equitable, and globally competitive clean energy economy that puts workers and communities first and leaves no one behind. Then support the Green New Deal! We must provide a world-class education in every zip code to every child because education is a critical public good. Democrats believe in universal early childhood education and affordable, high-quality child care. We will shut down the school-to-prison pipeline and build a school-to-opportunity pipeline in its place. I actually want to give a shout-out to my fellow Missouri delegates for Bernie Sanders because this is actually language that came directly from resolutions that we submitted. So yay, great work, everybody. We will make college affordable again and give Americans relief from crushing student debt. It won't go far enough. We commit to a foreign policy that accelerates our domestic renewal, not undermines it. Here again, when they talk about foreign policy, they always talk about it in relationship to how it benefits Americans, not how we're hurting people across the world. And I think that that's a really frustrating part of mainstream American politics in general that doesn't vary between parties. We will focus on what matters most to Americans. More and better jobs, greater security, a cleaner environment, and a more inclusive and resilient society. Democrats will lead with diplomacy as our tool of first resort and mobilize our allies and partners to meet the tests none of us can meet on our own. We will stand up to the forces of authoritarianism and not aid and abet their rise. There are plenty of countries that the United States has been allies with for a long time that are authoritarian. Look at Saudi Arabia and Turkey, for example. If we really wanted to stand up to authoritarianism, Why wouldn't we stand up to those countries and not others? I just don't get it. And we will speak and act with clarity and purpose on behalf of human rights wherever they are under threat. Except for when our allies are the ones threatening them. Again, looking at Israel. And we will honor our sacred covenant with our women and men in uniform, our veterans, and our military families who have carried the burdens of wars that must at long last come to an end. See, I wish they actually meant this, which they don't. Above all, Democrats still believe in the American idea, its principles, its purpose, and its promise. We know that 4 more years of the crass, craven, corrupt leadership we have seen from Donald Trump and the Republican Party will damage our character and our country beyond repair. We pray, as Langston Hughes did, "Oh, let America be America again, the land that never has been yet and yet must be, the land where every man is free." Democrats call on all Americans to come together and seize this last best chance to restore the soul of our nation, Blue MAGA, and vote this November to ensure our greatest days are still to come. All right, that was a time. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you haven't done so yet, please like and subscribe, and join me soon for my video on the next section of Platform, Protecting Americans and Recovering from the COVID-19 Pandemic. Have a great day. Bye.